I'm going to wait till 7:05 just to make sure that we have a reasonably full complement. Has everybody been surviving the heat these days?
Just barely. Although my kids are having a great time at my parents' house where they have a lake to go swimming in. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Got you beat, Meredith. I played 9 holes of golf this afternoon between 3 o'clock and 5:30.
You're crazy.
Are you
It's
still
hot out there.
Yeah, I think I'm getting mental a little bit, but
Make sure you drink a lot. Otherwise, you might go loopy on this call.
I did. I consumed an insane amount of water. But anyway, I'm here, I'm healthy, I'm good.
Good. That's what we like.
Thank you.
Deirdre, good evening. Curtly, good evening. John, good evening.
Hello,
Hey,
Tom.
Thomas.
Hey, Thomas.
How is everybody tonight?
Good. We've seen these faces before on many meetings.
Good. Good evening, Rosemary. How are you?
Good.
Mary, how you been?
Hanging in.
Thomas, how long do you think we have until your kids are joining you?
I'm gonna go with 3, 2, 1.
On cue.
Yeah. I've got one on my right and one on my, let's say, across the way from me. So
Well, thank you for being on.
no, it's I appreciate you guys understanding. So
Can I bring my dogs back?
I put my cat up in the bedroom, I'm afraid. She talks too much.
Yes.
Okay, I think it's probably time for us to get started. So I'd like to welcome everybody who's come today for what is our second public engagement meeting of the Town of Bedford Comprehensive Plan Update. Today, we're going to be looking at specifically the 3 hamlets in Bedford, but we're going to look at a bit more than that. Could we have the first slide, Colin? Okay, so the first question is where we are in the process, and I think most of you are probably familiar with that, but as you know, for a number of months, residents have been working together on 6 subcommittees discussing current issues and comparing today's reality in Bedford to the reality that was reflected in the 2003 comprehensive plan, and beginning to draft some conclusions about what they thought was important. In doing this, they've talked to many stakeholders in the town, in the individual hamlets. They've had meetings together. The subcommittees have looked at a number of different problems. And yet for all that, the reports, and they are really worthwhile reports to read if you haven't read them yet, they are still draft reports. We're still early on in this process, despite all the work that has already been done. So when I answer the question of where we are in the process, we're fairly close to the beginning, because this is where we're getting the public involved, where you all get a chance both to come up with your own ideas, to tell us what you think of the analysis that's been done so far, to tell us what you think we've gotten right and what we've gotten wrong, and what we've left out, and what maybe we should have left out, and to tell us what your view of the community is. And that's part of what we call participatory planning. For me, at least, participatory planning is planning from the ground up. It's getting as many stakeholders involved in any given endeavor as is humanly possible. Because it's only if something starts from the ground up that it's really going to reflect the will of the town as a whole. And this is a town that's worth protecting as a whole. Could I have the next slide, Colin? Back in 1917, when he wrote his history of the town of Bedford, James Wood, who was one of Bedford's preeminent characters, if you will, he wrote that those who are native here never feel quite at home elsewhere. Those who come here to reside for a time become conscious of an indescribable something which holds them here. It's a striking quote, and one that I think hits home with a lot of us even today, more than a century later. There is something about Bedford that is special to all of us. But we're a very diverse community, and that thing that's special isn't any one thing. It's a combination of many, many different things. So if the master plan is going to reflect that whole sense of community, we have to acknowledge that the whole is also the sum of its parts. And we have to figure out how to reflect that diversity that is part of the community. One of the ways we tried to do that at the beginning, but just a very simple and structural way of doing it, was to look at the fact that we have 3 hamlets that have very different personalities. They're all interrelated, but they have very different personalities. So one of the sets of subcommittees we set up were 3 hamlet subcommittees. And something interesting happened with that. One of the first questions that I started to get from the various committee chairs was, well, what do you mean by the hamlets? What's the boundary of Katona? What's the boundary of Bedford Village? What's the boundary of Bedford Hills? And my answer was a very annoying, I don't know, what do you think? And that's part of what I think the committees have been trying to discern, and part of what I hope is part of the conversation today. What do we mean by a hamlet? What does it reflect for different people? In the process of beginning to have that discussion, we learned along the way that there are other delineations that are important to people, that people in Bedford have different ways of belonging, and neighborhoods count as well. Some of those neighborhoods are contained within hamlets. Some of them are outside of hamlets. Some folks who belong to those neighborhoods feel more at home in their neighborhoods than anywhere else, and others feel equally at home in different parts of the town. So to get something of a little feeling going in about how you all feel about that, we've developed a poll that we'd like you to take. Colin, could you launch the poll? Please note that you have to scroll you have to use the bar on the right to scroll all the way to the bottom or all the way to the top. I don't think it all fits on, maybe it, no, it I thought there was one more at the top actually, but if your answer is other, if you could just in the chat, just quickly identify what the other answer you give to the question of where do you live is. Got 39 of 47, that's probably pretty close to everybody who's not on the panel, actually. I'm going to give it a few more seconds. Okay. Colin, are you going to share okay, you've got people attending. So right now, today, we have a fairly divided one that is Hamlet oriented with some folks from Bedford Corners. I think one of the things we're going to try to do is figure out a way to put this poll up on the town website, because the audience today is somewhat self-selecting. But it is interesting to see that a number of people do identify themselves as being from particular hamlets as opposed to other neighborhoods. With that said, we are going to be discussing the issue of neighborhoods at a subsequent public engagement forum. And we hope that you will come and talk to us about your feelings about your individual neighborhoods within the hamlets and those that are outside of the hamlets as well. With that said, I'd like to introduce Nanette Bourne, who is the consultant who is going to be helping us along the way with the town master plan. And I'll turn it over to you, Nanette.
Good evening. Thank you, Deirdre, and thank you for allowing us to be working with your community. And working with me this evening is Colin Brown, who you'll hear from in a few minutes. our agenda tonight is a little bit of a repetition from the first public engagement meeting that we held, except it's gone on a diet, and what we have tried to condense some of the detail of the process that we're going through. We started this process in January of this year. We expect that it will take the bulk of this year, with the anticipation that we will have a comprehensive plan for the community to review by the end of the year. For the rest of this evening, we want to talk about some details concerning the community engagement, how we see the plan being organized. It's a very fluid organization, but we are trying to put some structure to it. We will then go to some breakout groups that will include the Bedford Village, Bedford Hills, and Katonah. And then after we do the breakout groups, we will recap and come back for next steps and some of the highlights. So why is the community doing this? First of all, the last plan was adopted in 2003, and there have been a lot of changes and since that time, and realities that need to be addressed. We have seen some community stresses since the last in the last year, and I should recommend to make sure everybody has their computer on mute. Some people are still, I can still hear some people. So we want to recognize opportunities and challenges that are related to significant infrastructure improvements. Certainly the importance of reducing our carbon footprint, reducing vehicle miles traveled, enhancing the bike and ped connection within the community. We want to expand mobility choices to include safer pedestrian and bicycle options. We want to look at what strategies can be employed to improve the economic vibrancy of the hamlet centers. We want to prepare for global issues that will affect local businesses and residents. We've seen the impact that the pandemic has had on Bedford as well as all the communities, and there needs to be some attention to what we can do to remain a resilient community. We want to reaffirm and strengthen the town's commitment to sustainability and resiliency. There's a need to look at how to create and retain diverse housing opportunities, and to recognize the importance of promoting inclusion, diversity, and equity throughout the town. The plan hopes to develop frameworks with which to promote the unique character of each community and neighborhoods, and to ensure the protection of key agricultural and natural resources in the region. So as Deirdre mentioned, community engagement is absolutely central. It's the backbone of the comprehensive plan update that needs to begin right from the beginning all the way through to the end. And we've taken this very seriously. And it's not just me, but the community is a very engaged and attentive community. So we'd like to highlight just 5 of the phases of community engagement that we anticipate. The first being initial public meetings to help guide discussions on high-level values and overarching challenges facing Bedford. The second is as Deirdre mentioned, there are subcommittees that have been working for many months on specific topics. And those subcommittees include sustainability, horse and ag, and the transportation and mobility, and the hamlets of Katonah, Bedford Hills, and Bedford Village. Those reports are on the town's website, and we can't emphasize enough the importance that you refer and you review them and provide your input, because we're taking those reports seriously. We've developed a matrix that looks at the commonality of interests and issues among the subcommittees, so that we can identify areas of commonality for developing issues and strategies. Even though there are 6 subcommittees that were part of this plan, it does not represent the entirety of issues that are in the community. We have been meeting with the other groups in the community, including Bedford 2030, the IDEA committee, Bedford Riding Lanes, as well as Bedford Love Horses, and other smaller groups that contact us because they have a particular interest in making sure that their issues are known to us. The third area of community engagement will come next after these series of initial meetings, and we will take the issues and we will start to formulate policies that will provide a shared frame of reference for all Bedford residents to review, and they will be somewhat of a large assortment of what we've been hearing, organized in a coherent fashion for people to confirm that we're on track, we're off track, they need to be revised, they need to be eliminated. From that point of view, we will begin to hone those down into recommended actions, set priorities for actionable goals, timeframes, and other aspects of community ownership and governments. And finally, there will be a draft update of the comprehensive plan that will be distributed and reviewed by the community, honed, revised, refined before a plan is presented to the town board for adoption. So what I'll talk about just briefly is how we have organized the plan, and this plan's organization, again, is based on the subcommittee reports and our conversations with the community. This organization is fluid. People call, email, give us ideas. We put them on this list. We will hone as we go along. But the plan will include an introduction. It will discuss our hometown people and communities. It will look at housing, community services, our environment, the businesses and commerce in the town, mobility issues, horse farms and agricultural areas, land use and zoning. And then we'll talk about our future, and we will look at various land use issues and implementation that need to be addressed. But what we found from the subcommittee reports is that the recommendations and actions that were included really fall into two categories. One is a category of sustainability, and the second is a category of resiliency. So when we talk about sustainability, it's really a matter of all the values, all of the reasons why people have come to Bedford, and the importance that it be sustained, preserved, protected, and remain part of the backbone of the community. The housing, the neighborhoods, the communities, the economic areas of the hamlets, land use, transportation, open space, parks, recreation, infrastructure, community services, cultural and historic resources, and the community groups and partnerships that are part of the community. Second is the interest in making sure that Bedford remains a resilient community, a community that can bounce back when there are issues or problems or catastrophes or pandemics that really challenge a community for moving forward. The sustainability committee, the resiliency committee brought out some of these issues, including floods and droughts and storm risks, forestry, street trees, energy efficiency for businesses, local food processing and sourcing, land use and landscaping, clean, reliable transportation, materials waste and recycling, environmental justice, and public safety. And then the plan will include, as in the appendices, the full reports of the committee, maps, significant land use projects that are underway, and a glossary of terms that are being used. So with that as the intro, if there's a chat, if you have questions, now would be a good time to raise your hand or put any questions you have in the chats. And then we can, if there are questions, we can address them now and then go into the breakout groups. Questions or chats? I don't see, if there aren't any.
I'd suggest that if you want to ask a question, you put it in the chat, because right now I don't think any of us can see everybody's hands. I don't see anything popping up.
One of the questions in the chat is, in addition to historic districts, can we consider historic homes also? Yes. And we would assume that that was included, but we will be more specific to include, make sure that that is detailed.
The work of the Townwide Historic District Commission is exceedingly important, and they deal specifically with historic homes that are not part of districts. And so one of the things we are looking at is their role and whether that needs to be enhanced or discussed.
And Deirdre, do you want to take the question of how is this meeting advertised around town?
It was advertised primarily, the newspapers were told about it, I believe. It was posted on the town website. There was an email list that went out. We've asked that anybody who's interested in hearing more about the town development plan send their email to planning@bedfordnewyork.gov, and you will be put on that email list. And if anybody has additional suggestions for ways that we can advertise these things, we'd really appreciate it. This is one of the ongoing issues in town. Probably should be a chapter in the master plan, actually, is how do we communicate as broadly as possible? We do continue to try to find new ways to work on it, and we're very open to different ways of trying to get it across. It was posted on Facebook on Katona People. If you did not get an email and you think your name is on the email list, again, if you could send us something to planning@bedfordnewyork.gov, we'd appreciate it. And we'll try to make sure that we update the list.
There was a question concerning when will we look at land use and rezoning issues. That it will be a significant part of the next phase. Once we conclude this phase of collecting issues and opportunities that are brought to us by the community, we will then start to assemble them into some cohesive and coherent direction for the plan that will include land use and rezoning. So I would imagine that we will be presenting those probably towards the end of the summer, maybe in September.
We have a question: how best can I present several questions based on my initial reading? You ask if it's best to send it to us in writing first or wait for breakout groups. I would suggest both. If you've got ideas right now, the sooner we hear them, the better. If there is a breakout group that's dealing with the issues that you're interested in, then by all means present it to the great breakout room.
Can you discuss more of what is included in reducing the carbon footprint? I would recommend that you look at the report of the Resiliency Committee, as well as the product that Bedford 2030 has put out. Our expectation is that we will incorporate a lot of what Bedford 2030, and it is an important part of the town's DNA right now. Bedford has been a very progressive community in that regard, and we're not looking to reinvent what Bedford 2030 has already done, but incorporate them into the plan.
We also have, will there be a quick overview of the reports in the breakout rooms? I think the answer is probably yes, that the individual subcommittee chairs will go over that. The breakout rooms are going to be hosted by the various chairs of each Hamlet subcommittee. So there will be someone leading the discussion.
So you can continue to put your comments in the chat, and we will address them. Our expectation is that we will put comments and responses on the town's website. There's a link to the comprehensive plan update, and we will continue to populate that with information as it's developed. So going to breakout groups, I will turn this over to Colin, who can direct and explain how we get there.
Thank you, Nanette. So we have 3 breakout sessions tonight that will be happening concurrently. And what we're going to do in the next few minutes is open up the breakout rooms so that everyone can choose which room they would like to go to and start those discussions. It should be noted that you can choose to switch rooms if you would like to. So we're planning to allow up to an hour for discussions in these rooms, and we'll check in periodically to see how the discussions are going, but that's the plan for tonight. And then at the end of the meetings, we'd like to bring everyone back for just a brief recap so that there's a little bit of overlap and we can hear maybe some summaries of what happened in the other rooms if people didn't have a chance to hear from everyone. So before I open up the rooms, just a quick technical kind of run through. Down at the bottom of your Zoom window, you'll see like a symbol that's 4 squares that looks, that is the breakout rooms. So you'll click that, and then the 3 options will present themselves, and you can hit the join button next to the room that you would like to go into. If for some reason you're not able to join, please just type in your desired room in the chat, and one of the hosts will be able to help assign you to that room. And so without any other delay, I would like to just introduce our subcommittee chairs that will be facilitating these meetings. So Kirtley Cameron will be running the Bedford Village room. Rosemary Lee will be leading Bedford Hills, and Niall Washburn will be leading Katona. So at this point, I will open up the rooms and we can start those discussions. And at this point, everyone should now be able to go to the bottom of their window and see the breakout rooms. And again, if you're not able to join the one you would like to, please just type in your desired room in the chat and we can help get you there.
And Colin, are you going to put us? I don't have an option to join a room.
I can assign you, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, same here, Colin.
Do Colin.
So if you're in the room, you'll see your name. Is that fair?
If you're in the right room, you'll see your name listed under whichever room you want to be in.
Yeah, I don't have any.
No, you're not. If you're still talking to me, you're not in the right room. Let me see if I can get you.
So everyone, all of the committee chairs should be in their rooms now. Let me get to some of the comments. And is there anyone left in the main meeting that has not been assigned to a room that they requested? I'm sorry if I missed your comment.
Yes, Colin, this is Lisa Schwartz. I was just trying to text you or chat you, please. Bedford Hills.
Bedford Hills.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Andrew, do you want to be in Katona? Any chance?
Colin, Wendy in Bedford Hills wants to join with her phone and she doesn't know how to do it.
Let me quickly look up how that's done. Just 1 minute.
She said she put the question in the chat.
Yes, she did ask the question in the chat. It's under Wendy's iPad.
Hi, Deirdre, it's Diane. I'm getting here late.
Which room would you like to go to, Diane?
Where would you like me?
Whichever hamlet intrigues you today.
You choose. I'll take Katona or Bedford Village because I know them better.
Why don't I put you in Bedford Village?
Okay.
Hold on a minute.
And can I speak or should I be quiet?
Um,
No, there was a thing
Yeah.
with,
Let me see if there are any other planning board members in Bedford Village. I don't think so, so I think you can speak. Or did I say I was going to put you in Katona? Which did I?
you said Bedford Village, but again, wherever you'd prefer me.
I'll put you in Bedford Village. I don't.
Okay.
And Colin, when you finish with Wendy, if you could assist Ellen Cohen, who wants to make sure she's in the Bedford Hills group.
Yes, I can send her there now. Deirdre or Nanette, do you see, I don't see Wendy's name listed in the main meeting anymore. Do either of you?
Not in the main meeting, no. I wonder.
Okay. Let me see if she was able to
she's-
join.
Yeah, she's in the Bedford Hills.
Oh, okay, great.
if you made it. Anita, do you want to go into a room?
I don't know. I use all of the hamlets, but it seems like we're spending a lot of time on the hamlets and not on the whole 6 square miles of Bedford.
Well, that's what I think we're going to be doing in our next public engagement. I talked about that a little at the beginning of the meeting, that we are going to be talking.
Well, yeah, I did hear that, but we were also had the 3 hamlets last week as well, or last time.
No, last time we had the transportation,
Okay.
those were all town-wide.
Okay. Well,
you can ask us any questions you'd like here.
yeah, how would I have gotten on a mailing list? I feel like I'm a fairly, involved member of the community, but the only reason I knew about this whole meeting was because John knew about it.
Had you signed up for the mailing list at the last, because we talked about it at the last public engagement meeting.
Maybe, I guess I didn't. And none of my neighbors know about this meeting either. So at least they don't seem to be.
Well, as I said, we're really interested in new ideas for how to make people aware of the meetings, and particularly given your neighborhood, which would be one of the ones that I think important for our next public engagement. When
Yeah.
we do neighborhoods, I think it's important that we get you included. So if you could maybe send me some ideas of ways that we could get the meetings better advertised.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try and spread the word. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Mr. Morris, is there a particular room that you would like to visit?
For anyone left in the main meeting or who just joined and would like to join one of the 3 breakout rooms, please just let us know and we can direct you there.
Colin, were you able to help Wendy?
I think I did see she joined one of the rooms, but
She wants to join using her phone.
I do not see her.
Can you hear me, guys, or no? Can you hear me or no?
I can now.
Okay, I'm on my iPad, but I've got to get in my car and drive. I'm trying to figure out how to rejoin my session on my phone. So yes, I'm in a room on my iPad, but I'm going to have to get off in 30 seconds. So is there a way to join my room on my telephone with the dial-in number as opposed to the Zoom link?
I think there should be. And sorry, Wendy, can you remind me which room you would like to go to?
I'm in Bedford Hills.
Bedford Hills. Okay, I will assign you there now.
On this call right here?
Yes, let me see. I can assign you now, and if it
Because
doesn't
I'm in
work,
there now on my iPad. I'm going to get off of my iPad, okay? Now I'm talking to you on the phone, and hopefully I will be here at the meeting on the phone in 30 seconds when you connect me.
okay, great. Okay, Nanette, it looks like that worked. So Wendy should be set in the breakout room.
Now, did our meeting stop being recorded here when I left, or was it still being recorded here as well?
It should still be recording here. I think because it doesn't leave the main meeting, but if it did follow you, you haven't missed anything. So,
I was a little bit worried because it made that announcement about this meeting is being recorded, but it might be because it was being recorded anyway to the cloud.
oh,
Not
okay.
the cloud. In fact, it was the different recording symbol, so I think that is what it was. It was this one has the cloud recording symbol. The one in the breakout room was just the red recording symbol that indicates it's being recorded to the computer.
Okay. Well, it hopefully it shouldn't matter in this case. We haven't had too many people join mid meeting, so it looks like everyone's fairly stable in their breakout rooms.
I may go visit another room just to see what's going on.
Okay. For anyone that just joined the main meeting, if you would like to be assigned to one of the breakout rooms, just let me know and I can send you there.
I just joined. Could you put me in the Katona room, please?
Sure. 1 second. To anyone that just joined the meeting, if you'd like to be assigned to a room, just let me know and I can get you there. For anyone that just joined us, if you'd like to be assigned to one of the 3 breakout rooms and can't get there, just let me know and I can assign you to that room.
Colin, when do you think we close up shop? Colin?
Hi, Deirdre. I was about to send out the 10-minute warning for our groups.
Yeah, I think it's time. They-
Okay,
They're all doing really well. They've got lots of things to talk about. There was no fear about conversation lagging.
good, good. Well, I hope we don't cut off any good conversations, but I think it would be good to have everyone back and go through the recaps maybe like we did last time.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, great. Let me send that out.
think maybe it's time to bring them back, isn't it?
I think so. Let me close the rooms and we can get everyone back here.
I think we're back.
Yes, you're coming on back.
We got the signal.
It sounded like there were lively discussions in every group. I spent
Yes.
room. I was impressed.
So I think we have everybody that's staying on is back. And before we do some wrap-ups, I'd like to make a couple comments. I jumped around to the 3 breakout sessions, and one of the comments that was mentioned in a couple of them is that people have brought issues to our attention in addition to what's in the subcommittee reports. And please understand that they're not being lost. Not everything that has been mentioned is included in the subcommittee reports. We are keeping a list of other ideas and issues that should be included, and those will appear again. You know, we hope that you will see in the next phase of this your comments. The next steps are shown on this chart, and it shows that we are about 1/3 of the way through. We are just completing the stakeholder meetings. We have a couple left, but for the most part, we're finishing the bulk of the stakeholder meetings. And that doesn't mean that the subcommittees will stop working. Many of them will continue working, and they will continue to feed us information and ideas. One of the comments that was raised is in one of the breakout sessions was, now what? So the now what is that we're going to be going to the next alternative policies and recommendations. And this again is where we will literally have a collection of the comments and issues and suggestions that have been brought out by all of you, and we will try to assemble them somewhat coherently in the organization format of the comprehensive plan, so you can look at those and tell us if we've got it right, if we've got it wrong, if it needs to be adjusted. So the next time we will be meeting with you probably towards the end of the summer or in September. It will be to look at those recommendations. So Deirdre, do you want to continue on with the committee wrap-ups, the breakout rooms?
You myself. I think so. I am going to add one more thing. I think there may be one more public engagement session to talk about the issue of neighborhoods and the outside part of the non-Hamlet part of Bedford. I think there's been a real request for that, and I think it may be an important thing for us to do.
Yes.
By September, it may be possible for us to have that be an in-person meeting, so we might want to consider that as well.
Deirdre, can I make a plug for our in-person meeting as well?
Please do.
Thank you. The Bedford Village Subcommittee is holding an in-person stakeholder public meeting on July 21st at Historical Hall, and hopefully that will be publicized robustly, but please join us again, but also please let people know and encourage people to come, and we look forward to doing it in person then. Thank you.
And that may be a segue into your having just volunteered to be the first of the committee chairs to
Yes.
give a quick.
Okay,
round.
thank you. Sure. So I'm going to give just a quick summary of some of the issues for the Bedford Village Subcommittee, and we had absolutely terrific feedback. Some topics which were in the report and some which were not. And this is, I'm sure I will forget some, but I'm going to go roughly in order. So I'm not prioritizing here. I just want to hit the high points. One of the first things we talked about was around sustainability and CO2 emissions and the progress that the town has made, but the challenges of moving from sort of some of the lower hanging fruit there to the harder to impact pieces. A lot of conversations about transportation, vehicles, trucks, school buses. Under the same category, sort of the tension between forest land and farmland, forest land and solar panels, increased population and affordable housing, and CO2 emissions and farming. So, really taking a look, and obviously that's not just a Bedford Village issue, but, how do we take that into the Bedford Village conversations and beyond? So thank you for that. The next was concerns about expansion and density, and some great conversations around accepting that density, including traffic, is not going anywhere, but how do we think about it in a thoughtful and planned way where it doesn't threaten the character of the village, and that we preserve what we have, and that when you think about anything from zoning to more commercial or more shops, that it's not about more, but just to be really careful not to think about it as an expansion without thinking about what the town and the hamlet can handle, and handle well. And again, the tension and the balance between that and the vitality of businesses and the vitality of the hamlet as a place that people want to both live and visit. Great conversation around affordability, accessibility, opportunities to improve our accessibility by all definitions, both in public spaces and in buildings. Disaster preparedness, the lack of cell phone coverage. It's scary and it's real, and it could lead to, some life-threatening situations. That needs to be, and I know it is, and we don't have an answer, but it's urgent. And I think that's the right word for it. Power outages under the infrastructure piece. Also in a more immediate shelter, firehouse, is that part of the new firehouse? How does that relate to resources for residents during a disaster? And is that a resource for both shelter and food and power? Back to traffic. Again, I'm sorry that these aren't very prepared because I'm going first, but back to the traffic piece, just really acknowledging the problem of traffic on 172, and that twice a day you cannot get through Bedford Village, and it is beyond capacity, and yet we're talking about how do we support more local businesses, and there's a tension there. A lot of that traffic is not local, but it's not going anywhere. So, when we talk about that, how does the traffic plan that I know already exists as a separate plan, how does the traffic plans around Bedford Village work with some of the other goals of our recommendations? Another conversation about accessibility and the importance of that, of equity and affordability with housing. And that comes right back again to transportation and public transportation, and whether it's vehicle public transportation or the bike paths, which came up easily 5 times in our conversation. And there are recreational bike paths and there are transportation bike paths. And could that be part of the solution, not just for the walkability and safety, but also the CO2 and the traffic? Disaster preparedness. So to go straight from traffic into parking, another of the really big challenges that Bedford Village has dealt with for many years. And again, acknowledging that there is an active parking plan, and that watching the progress on that and supporting it and understanding the impact of that really important to the goals that we're talking about, and what is possible and realistic for improving parking, and also for Bedford Village, that it's not just about the number of parking spaces, but it might be about communication and about changing the culture a little bit, and about encouraging people to actually not think that there's no parking if one of the 3 spots that they want in front of one store isn't open, but there might be a lot that they walk from, which is part of the culture in some towns or hamlets, but in Bedford Village it hasn't been. And how do we improve that? Again, affordable housing, working class housing, senior housing. Where are the opportunities within or close to Bedford Village that might be a possibility for some of that? Parking, Court Road parking, church parking. And then we sort of wrapped up with just what are the opportunities for improvement and changes, but changes without not changing what we have, but making what we have better. And I think this goes back to some of the very first conversations that our committee had, which is to say, how do you preserve the historic nature and what everyone loves about the unique qualities of Bedford Village, but make it a more vibrant place that is a great place to live and a great place to visit, and a strong, engaged community. And that community piece has been the thread through all of our conversations. And I think most of the topics that we talked about tonight, relate directly to that. And as I said, I think there's some that we're missing from our report and some that got strengthened through these conversations. So I'm excited to go back and kind of reconcile the two. Thank you. And if anyone else from our committee wants to jump in, please do so. I'm sure I missed a lot of important points.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good, Curly. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Thank you for all of your input tonight.
It was a great summary of everything that went on in your meeting. Thank you. Rosemary, do you want to go next? Rosemary?
Okay, there we go. We talked somewhat about, we had a good group, a good cross section with different interests. We talked about the fact at one point that what I learned, if it's not in the plan, it's not going to be acted on by the town. So we really have to capture everything in detail. But again, there are themes, as Curtly said. And our first, after we talked about some of the main issues in the plan, we talked about our historic district and the reasons for that designation that we felt were very important. The history that is really not known. We had both of our museum co-presidents discussing that history with us, and we definitely want to share that with the community because we feel that it's I think that's an important point to kind of represent the community, and it's of great interest, and it has a marker. It's kind of a marker or a point where you everything else can flow from that, both walking tours, events at the train station, etc., and exploring that history by minibus or jeepney bus as well as it was really a pleasure to walk through town. We all drive through town. We never see the beautiful buildings that are behind those trees. We never hear about the history, and we felt that's an important stabilizing event for us that will start the ball rolling to get people in. But there's work involved with that, and the work is going to be on many people, including the town. The town would have to assist us in making that happen. We spoke about housing, the need for senior housing and affordable housing for those people that are downsizing, selling homes. We like the idea of affordable housing, condos or townhomes that are attractive, that would allow people to reside in the downtown area. We think it's important to draw people there as well as residents. So we support the stores on the first level and the, let's say, apartments, et cetera, on the second level to bring more viability into the town. In the area of housing, it's extremely important that we have some affordable housing. We talked about safety and traffic. as the other committees did. There's a lot of concern about the speed, the number of vehicles and trucks of large trucks that are going through Bedford Hills and on all of the side streets. So there were recommendations about traffic calming. We really feel that we need to do some studies down there to deflect some of the traffic onto 117, which we know is a state road. It's going to take a regulation or negotiation, and lessen the traffic and the speed and do some traffic calming measures in that downtown area. We had a comment that in order to complete our task, we need a lot more data to expand the resources and to look at populations, to look at that much more carefully in terms of the data. You know, I explained that it was very difficult to get data, even including the boundaries of the various hamlets, which we all discovered were kind of amorphous. And so getting data about our communities, our committee is going to continue to work with the school principals to get some more information. And one of our members, Suni, also touched base with the schools because we need to know more about the families and the populations to look to the future. That's a really important aspect. We had one person speak about one of the reasons he moved to Bedford and Bedford Hills was because he found a beautiful park-like canine commons, and tells me there are over 200 people that are members of that park. And he said it's a fantastic operation, but he was concerned about the mulching operation and the aquifer protection. And that's something that we hadn't heard before, so we'll be looking at that. There were other comments about why are we splitting into hamlets? Why are we not looking at things, I think I could say globally across the town, you know, and how can we work that out and in order to scale budgets and be more equitable in funding and distribution? Because, you know, our hamlets are very different. They're very visually different, population different, and all of that. So Bedford Hills was described as, you know, more or less the commercial and town center operation. We are looking at using the downtown area for events. And the suggestion was made that we take the time to close the downtown center, perhaps on a periodic basis, to allow people to walk around and just enjoy the stores, have the store owners come out and be able to connect, as we've seen that happening in other towns. One individual said that unless you bring stores and businesses that attract families and residents, you will not be able to revitalize downtown Bedford Hills. So that's a pretty weighing comment. And in fact, our committee does want to look at zoning and planning to see whether we can create some incentives, not only for the types of businesses we would like, but also for having more residents in the downtown area. So that was, I think, an important point on the housing. So we had a lot of traffic issues and concerns, and also walking, pedestrian safety on Cherry Street, trying to walk. I mean, we were all looking to walk all across town and get the exercise. Cherry Street, following the installation of sidewalks, has a lot more foot traffic on it because maybe people feel safer. But Cherry Street and getting to the railroad or the train station was viewed as a problem, a safety problem, as a matter of fact, along with the other traffic situation. So I think that area deserves a study, a traffic study, maybe similar to what's been proposed in Bedford Village or the other communities. I think that is pretty much what I got. If anybody else wants to chime in, using the railroad building more frequently for perhaps community events was brought up. We are planning possibly to do a public session in the fall. That would be an ideal spot. That's pretty much it. I think we have many similarities, but what I stressed at the meeting is that we all found when we put our proposals in our items that we did have many commonality in issues like the bike paths, et cetera. But I don't know whether Bedford Hills is going to continue to develop sidewalks. We're kind of a rural community, but we need walking access, other forms of access. And so as sidewalks are being extended and developed and they're more costly and they have maintenance, how far are we going to go with extending sidewalks in our community and also the cost. So I think that's it. Thank you. We'll add those comments.
Thank you very much. And Niall, do you want to give your report for Katona? Or is Meredith going to do it? I didn't know which of the two of you wanted to report.
Niall, are you there? Okay, maybe we lost Niall. So among the comments, I'll get started. Hopefully Niall will join us again. I'm not sure if we lost him.
That's great.
Sorry, I think I
there we go.
was on mute. Thank you, Meredith, for pointing that out. So I'll just start, and then Meredith will also join in. Meredith's the co-chair, the vice chair of our committee. So we started off talking about the history and character of Katona, that is sort of central to the individual identities as Rosemary has just mentioned, to each of the hamlets. They're all very different. Katona has some very special things about it based in its history of being moved. And since we're essentially talking about a planning document, it's sort of fascinating that Katona is actually a planned community that was moved, not just sort of grown organically. And so the background on the history and character, has long been sort of one of the selling points, even from a real estate point of view, of in recent decades of Katona and Bedford in general. But I think there are concerns that the way that the history of the town and the history of Katona has been presented is a little bit too narrow and doesn't deal adequately with the indigenous population and the other minority populations and people of color in the community who go back very far into our history, but don't sort of get mentioned as much in, if you look at the way the history of Katona has even been presented in past town comprehensive plans and past town documents, it is interesting that it does not go, I think, as far into those subjects as it probably should. Of course, people are probably aware that there were enslaved persons in Katona, in the early days, including on John Jay's estate. A lot of our conversation was about parking and traffic and the downtown business core, as has been repeated in the other subcommittee breakout sessions. We, as one of the two hamlets that has a train station in it and large commuter parking situation, as well as a place that has a central business district that is quite large compared to the central business districts of the other two hamlets. We have special concerns about parking, just on a sort of a higher, let's just say, parking spot count point of view. So, there has been a history in the past of exploring a multi-level parking garage to be placed on the J Street lot. There are issues related to the J Street railroad crossing that our subcommittee has discussed and were discussed a little bit tonight. There may be options to sort of slow the control the speed of through traffic through the central business district of Katona and the historic district, which of course sort of back up on each other, at least the core of the planned community from the early 1900s. We talked quite a bit about community and recreation subjects. The library was discussed at some length. The issues of the Katona Village Library, which is larger than the other hamlet libraries, is a very central element in the Katona, in the hamlet of Katona, and it is a sort of outsized. I don't mean that in a bad way. It has a lot of programming that is a strong part of our hamlet, and so we're interested in how that expanding our report to include how that that relationship of the town and the library might be strengthened. The community of Katona, I'm not sure of the count, but at least as much as the other hamlets has suffered a great deal. The downtown business district has suffered during the pandemic. There are important changes to the way parking is being used in the community right now that it's hard to predict how they will play out in what we can hope is the recovery from the pandemic. But at the same time, I think with a view, as we were discussing, of sort of 10 to 20 years looking ahead, that it is important to try to tackle these parking issues for our community, even if they don't seem at the moment to be the same as they were a year and a half ago. We did not have enough time, or maybe didn't plan well enough to sort of cover all of our topics. So we will be trying to do a follow-up meeting to cover some of the other subjects, including residential development and zoning changes. We did discuss the need for more affordable housing in the community. And we do have certain topics about sustainability and water and sewer that I think we'll come back to in a second meeting, hopefully an in-person meeting. And I think we don't have a date, but we're thinking about doing that in July. We did discuss whether or not expanding a sort of an ARB, an architectural review board, would be helpful for our community. I think obviously when we're talking about the needs of each hamlet, there should also be, what happens in each hamlet and whether the hamlets have a distinct ARB or whether there's a town-wide architectural review board, I think is something that needs to be fleshed out. There was interest in possibly expanding the list of buildings that are recognized as important, whether or not they're officially protected at this stage, or just something that the town acknowledges as important, is something that we'd like to discuss. There is attached to our report an appendix of a number of buildings that it's just a starting point that might be considered as important, that are not just the same buildings that are already in the historic districts. And we'd love to have your feedback on that document. There were some issues surrounding police presence and ticketing, which were discussed, and I would encourage people who are concerned about that to both be talking to the town comprehensive plan process, but also if there's ever any immediate sort of urgent need to discuss something like a police matter, I would not rely on the TCP, which is a longer range document, and encourage people to also bring those issues directly to the police and town officials. There were just a discussion of whether there might be some disincentives for landlords in letting stores remain empty. We have a strong emphasis in our report, both in the village center and also in terms of connectivity to the other hamlets and adjacent areas in the town, about making the community more bikeable and walkable. My observation personally is that Katonah has never seen more people walking around in the automobile era than has happened during the pandemic. And I hope that will continue and that we can do things to expand it. There are some small issues involving, there is a historic bridge at the end of the J Street parking lot, which is slated for demolition by the Department of Environmental Protection and New York City Department of Environmental Protection. And it's the sort of thing that the town might want to more aggressively try to preserve. We would like to see that become part of the circulation around the train station to reduce traffic in town, as it did at one time in the past. Traffic calming came up repeatedly. The need to support downtown businesses in the near term as they're recovering from the pandemic is a very important subject that we've discussed. We touched a little bit on affordable housing, but I hope we will be able to talk about that more in a follow-up session. Meredith, do you want to add anything?
I think the only other thing that didn't get noted is the inclusion of personal stories when we talk about the history of Katonah and whether that finds its way into the comprehensive plan or makes note in when we talk about the history of Katonah and tours and that like a thing. That's really for the planner to look at and assess. I also do think that when we talk about the police, that did come up, but I think that again is a conversation really surrounding how you utilize police and what that looks like, in our recommendations. And we didn't really get there today, but some of it was actually talking about really having officers that are regularly in town, so people recognize them. They know the residents that live there, and a different approach to how the police come and go from the hamlet as a whole. And I think the other thing that just wasn't as much articulated came down to when we talk about the ARB just weighing in and considering the criteria that are utilized in evaluating buildings, not only in the hamlet, but outside of the hamlet, outside of the historic district, and just being mindful that the criteria don't become exclusionary in how we're looking at them. So those are just some additional things to take into account.
Thank you, Meredith. Deirdre, you're muted. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much. Nanette, do you want to have any closing words?
I just have to say how delightful and impressed and interesting it is to hear all these issues and to listen to all of your conversations about your community. I tell everybody that our work with you is interesting in the sense that your presence and your residency in Bedford is so intentional. There's an intentionality about why you've all chosen to live in the town. And it's been really fun and interesting for Colin and I to get to know it better. And we have taken a lot of notes and we have a lot of work to do. And we look forward to putting this all out into some coherent sense for your next reaction. And again, please send your ideas and your thoughts to planning@bedfordnewyork.gov. So we will continue to hear from you. And I just want to thank you all for being present and thoughtful and articulate and smart and willing to kind of push Bedford to remain the wonderful community it is and be even better with all the things that your community has in it. And there is a reason why you like to live there, because it's a wonderful place to live, and it's a joy for Colin and I to be part of this piece. So that's all I have to say for now. Deirdre?
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. I do want to stress again that if you haven't put your name on the email list, or if you have friends and neighbors that you think should be on the email list, if you could encourage them to send just a simple request to bedfordnewyork.gov to be added to the TCP invite list, that we'll try to make sure that things get widely distributed. And if anybody has any additional suggestions for ways that we can better advertise this, the more people that are involved in the production of this document, the better the document will be, and the more true to the real will of the people of Bedford it will be. So it's in nobody's interest for this not to be well advertised. So please do help us with that. We're open to any suggestions that are out there. And with that, I think we've gone on a little longer than we intended, but I think it was worth every minute of it. I hope you agree. So I will bid you all good night, and we will let you know when we are going to have the next get together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Deirdre.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nanette and Colin. Thank you, guys.
Good night, all.
Good night.
All.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, bye, everybody. I'm cutting this off.